Welcome to Empowering Innovation, Trends and Triumphs, a podcast series dedicated to the success and challenges in innovation and growth within the UK tech startup scene. Welcome to the latest episode of our podcast series, Empowering Innovation, Trends and Triumphs. I'm Madison Smith, Business Development Manager at Empowered, and I'm here today with our lovely founder and executive chair, Hari Sandhu. We're going to be diving into the spring budget and looking at how that's going to impact UK innovation and the R&D tax credit scheme. Surprisingly, the recent spring budget was notably quiet on the R&D tax relief front, marking a pause in rapid changes that we've seen over the past few years. However, significant undercurrents, such as the impending merger of the R&D tax relief schemes, are set to redefine the way that we view R&D and innovation. I'm here with Hari to chat about some of those different changes and also the recent announcements that have been happening over the past year that will impact the R&D tax relief scheme and innovation. Hari, what are your opening thoughts?
Well, thank you, Maddie, and I guess welcome to everybody who's tuning in to the podcast. As you're saying, I mean, it's the announcement or the speech itself was noteworthy for what was said as well as what was not said. Yeah. Right. But what I want to, before I kind of jump into the areas, those areas, it was really just valuable for me, I think, and for those that operate within sort of the innovation ecosystem that we operate within, to have the chance to acknowledge the fact that innovation is one of probably the strongest drivers of productivity across the OECD. Mm-hmm. I mean, there aren't too many other options that a country has to drive growth, right, per capita or otherwise, right, than investing in innovation. And to be able to operate within the ecosystem and the sphere that we're in, to be able to have the impact that we are, or the outsized impact that we're able to have on the economy, and to spur more innovation in that space is hugely valuable. So that was great as an acknowledgement from the Chancellor, and then there were a whole host of investment announcements around innovation, which I'm sure we'll get into through the course of this conversation, but. It was great to hear the belief that the Chancellor, and by extension the wider government, has on the impact that investing in innovation can have on growth in the UK, on empowering the workforce across the country as well. So that was really valuable.
Yeah, definitely, because it's not felt like that, I feel like, over the past year with all the chopping and changes, especially within the R&D tax credit scheme. It sort of felt like they were drawing back on investing in innovation in the UK, but maybe this is a little sign now that that's actually going to be a bit more stable. Do you think that's a positive thing for innovation in the UK as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's the R&D tax relief scheme is one of the sub-levers within the overall sort of sphere of innovation that the government has to play with. And over the past couple of years, we've seen a drive towards more robustness in claims, a push towards greater auditability of the claims themselves, to ensure that the scheme is as great a value for the taxpayer as it can be, and as it historically has been as well. But it's just kind of like raising the value of that. But that's couched within the belief from all sides of the house that this is a hugely valuable policy. Yeah, it's obviously been around for 24 years now, and it's been very stable for the bulk of that period of time, and a lot of the change that's come about in the last sort of 18 to 24 months has been about bringing it into more, in a more concrete way into the 21st century.
Yeah.
To acknowledge, what R&D looks and feels like more nowadays than it did maybe at the, the turn of the millennium. Because that's broadly when it came about. So it's a lot of the changes that we've seen HMRC bring about within the scheme have been ones we've been advocating for since our inception, right, back in 2017. So it's great that HMRC are listening, and broadly the wider government is listening as well, and they're bought into the scheme. It's not about it's not about sort of try something different. It's about let's we the government's saying here, our interpretation is we believe in the scheme. Let's make sure that we refine around the edges and make sure that it's fit for purpose for how UK businesses are innovating today, rather than what the manner in which they were innovating when people were using floppy disks and on-site servers and that sort of thing. So yeah, on the whole, I think it's a huge revalidation of the scheme.
Yeah, definitely. And on like that revalidation, obviously the main thing that we know is going to happen come the 1st of April 24 is that the SME and the RDC scheme is going to be merged. What are your, obviously I think the budget itself didn't touch on that too much, so what are the main points or main thoughts on that still that's important to kind of raise to people at the moment?
So first of all, I'd say the fact that the budget didn't touch upon the new merge scheme that will be coming about, replacing the current SME and RDEC schemes, is the fact that it wasn't mentioned is an indicator that an indicator of stability, right? I mean, the changes that were were highlighted, that and indicated and legislated for in the previous two budgets. They're now in place, and so now this is an indicator of HMRC indicating that, and the broader UK government saying, look, we want to we're feeling confident about the position of the scheme, and that anything that needed to be tweaked to enable this scheme to be settled for for the next decade or two at least, right, are in place. We still think that there could be a little bit of tweaking around the edges. One of the things that may happen in the future is the new SME intensive scheme, the R&D intensive scheme, which still utilizes a lot of the foundation of the current SME scheme. That may well be merged into the broader merged scheme as well, to make it again easier to administer, both from an HMRC perspective as well as from an advisory perspective, and for claimants to understand what exactly what they get out from the process at the beginning of the process when they begin working on it. So that's hugely valuable. It didn't go the budget itself didn't go into a huge amount of detail on that, but the papers associated with the budget certainly provided just confirmation of the fact that HMRC are and the UK government are more confident with the structure of the scheme today.
And you mentioned obviously there were some things that maybe weren't mentioned in the budget itself, but obviously there were other things happening same days of the budget, one of them being like a consultation around kind of the R&D scheme itself, and kind of are people and advisors sticking to the right rules that they should be with the R&D tax credit scheme? I guess that wasn't maybe in the budget, but it came at the same time as the budget. Is that an important thing to kind of mention or kind of expand on a little bit?
Yes, no, I think it is. I mean, it's significant. The consultation, just to be clear, is about the behaviour of agents, tax agents, in the tax market within the UK, where fees are paid by a company to an advisor for tax advice, and what HMRC are consulting on is how can the behavior of tax agents be better regulated to provide as robust a service and as trustworthy a service to claimants or or companies across the UK as possible. This is an area again that we've invested a lot of our own sort of our own conversational time with HMRC, right, through every channel that we have access, and the conversations we have with them on scaffolding and on encouraging, because historically there have been some bad apples who've taken advantage of the fact that organizations are able to operate within let's pick our our patch of land, right, around the R&D in the R&D industry, but have been able to provide advice to claimants without necessarily having the best interests of the claimant at heart, or the taxpayer, right? And it's very much the structure for those organizations. The advisors have been how can we seeing the R&D claim as a sadly as a gravy train sometimes, right? Claim back as much as we can without necessarily thinking about, like, is this the right thing for the is this right both by the letter of the law and the guidelines as well as the spirit of the laws and the guidelines. So the consultation is looking at, like, what's the best way to provide either regulation or increase the quality of the tax advice being given to UK companies, and not just within the R&D space, but across the across the tax industry as a whole. There are broadly three options that HMRC are seeking opinions on. And the first of these is, should every tax agent or every entity providing tax advice be registered with a professional body? The second is, should it be a hybrid sort of approach where the tax agents or advisors are registered either with a tax professional body or with a professional body, but whether it's I don't know, ICAW, ATT, or etc., right? Or alternatively be registered with HMRC. And the third is where they're able to, I guess, is a softer approach where they're able to kind of continue to self-regulate as well. But HMRC are looking for for opinions across the market, across each three of those areas. Our push and where we believe, what we believe is the right option, given both burden on on the agents as well as right by the industry, is probably the second option, which allows for certainly registration both by the professional bodies for an advisor, but also HMRC as well, because this ensures that HMRC and professional bodies, between the two of them, have visibility across all of every entity that might be providing advice. On the whole, what it's doing is is shining a light on the area of tax advice across the UK, which is hugely valuable. It allows HMRC to be able to identify, if not sort of openly, at least internally, for them to be able to identify who's providing relevant, accurate advice, and who maybe, which entities maybe need a bit of support and handholding, and and maybe some correction in the advice that they're providing to UK companies.
So overall, we're feeling like it's positive in the sense of the steps they're taking to encourage innovation, but also the steps they're taking to regulate these areas that maybe they reinvest in for innovation as well.
Yes, I mean, I think it's both the steps being taken are broadly, I was going to say commensurate with the challenge. But I think some of my tax advisor colleagues it's some of the other organizations that operate within our space and broad and white think that's they don't agree with that, right?
Yeah.
Maybe think HMRC has been a bit heavy-handed with some of the changes that they brought about, but we would certainly say that change was necessary. We all heard the examples of within the R&D space, claimants, claiming for
ice cream trucks.
Ice cream trucks, menus, and
restaurants.
croissants, and exactly. And so there was some tightening up that needed to be done. But if we look out, again, this is this consultation is more broad than just the R&D market. It's across all tax advice. But there are similar, let's say, idiosyncrasies, right, between different firms and the kind of advice that they give in other parts as well. So not least some of the advice being given around personal tax as well. So not just on the corporate side, but also on the personal side as well. So,
it everywhere.
Exactly. So the fact that there is an increase in sort of regulation is great, but alongside that, HMRC are also committed and have committed to greater support to both advisors as well as claimants. Greater training is being made available. They're certainly putting a lot more staff in on their side to be able to both answer questions and provide robust review of R&D claims as well, and wider tax advice.
There was a mention in the spring budget about like an expert advisory panel as well. Is that kind of linking into that like extra support that they're offering, and kind of what will that panel look like? How will that help people?
So we noted this, and with a just a confident smile again, because this is one of those areas where we're very much bought into the value of this. And so there isn't clarity yet on exactly what this expert panel is, but if it's what we've sort of engaged with HMRC about and sort of and pushed for somewhat, then our interpretation of this is that it's very much in line with with Oz Industry. So that's the Australian office for reviewing and administering R&D claims. So broadly, you have in Australia, there's a separate office that administers, it's kind of simplifying the process a bit, but that administers the costs associated with a claim that's submitted and the narrative associated with the claim. So the narrative, the understanding whether the R&D activity being undertaken is at the state of the art level, or if it's more run of the mill, right? And so as we understand it, what HMRC are looking to put together is a panel of experts that can review and kick the tires on a claim that's received to ensure that it's that the claimant isn't looking to simply claim for the development of a website, right? But they're looking to claim the R&D tax relief on something that does sit on sit on the edge of on the state of the art, on the bleeding edge. And as we know, operating within this space, the bleeding edge shifts moment to moment. And what might classify as being in that space today may not be so in a week's time, right? So this is hugely valuable, having a panel of folks that can provide advice into HMRC on the veracity and the strength of a claim. Again, it does come with the obvious caveats that no one individual, regardless of however expert they might be, can cover the full breadth of every part of their domain, right?
Yeah.
Even if they have, a PhD in artificial intelligence, I mean, they may not be the right individual to be able to. I mean, the PhD will be for a very niche element of AI.
Yeah.
They may well be sort of state of the art or R&D being undertaken in a relevant field, but slightly adjacent, which is outside of the expertise of this individual. Yeah. But having that expert in place, being able to review and provide support to HMRC's decision making, is still a step forward from where we're at today.
Yeah.
Where some of the the caseworkers looking at a claim and potentially running an inquiry on a claim may not have the expertise. More likely than not, will lack the expertise to be able to really question whether a claim is genuine R&D or not.
Yeah, fair. So it's almost like a step up from what we currently have. We've obviously got like the fact that we have inquiries and questions that are asked on claims, but this might be a questioning and an inquiry, or like you said, like maybe like kicking the tires on like what is someone who actually has more of an understanding on the current industry, or like kind of like you said, what is at that bleeding edge of advance of tech or science.
Exactly. So again, it's another step forward from HMRC. We are advocates of the step forward. We believe it's taking the scheme in the right direction, and therefore strengthening for the UK what is a hugely valuable policy for the country as a whole. And actually, it's bringing the UK more in line with some of their OECD counterparts, which is also what some of the changes that HMRC has brought about in the last, and spoken about in the last sort of 18 months have been about. So if we take the example of subcontracting overseas. Now, historically, the UK has been one of, if not the only, OECD member that allowed for overseas costs to be included within the scheme, and made it hugely valuable. But in terms of, was it the best use of the UK taxpayer pound? To have funds being invested into a firm that then sends that money across to, is actually employing workers and doing all this R&D elsewhere around the world. Is that the best use, and is that actually driving the quality of the UK's workforce, the skills that they
innovation as
have?
well, isn't
exactly
it?
So so the UK has amended that part of the policy. They're still allowing for subcontracting costs to be included, but those overseas costs will now be curtailed, and except for like certain niche areas, where not just because it was cheaper for an entity to for a UK organization to have their R&D being done elsewhere, so not just cost arbitrage as a reason, but if there was some other valid reason for them to do that there, like natural resource or the right conditions or whatnot, right? I mean, there aren't too many deserts in the UK, so maybe you have to do some research in that sort of environment. You have to look overseas to be able to do that. So again, it's a step in the right direction, and
well, it was.
When you have a policy, if you let the policy, especially a policy in as fast a moving space as R&D stand still, it can become stale and misaligned with the realities of the day. The big push over the past 18-24 months from HMRC, and this was again sort of emphasized in the Lord's report on the R&D claim, the R&D tax relief reform. The push has very much been in the motivations have very much been about more easier administration of the scheme, as well as greater resilience, auditability, and value for the taxpayer. And all of those motivations are, exactly, they're completely valid. So there's nothing, that you can test and push back and say, this is, you wouldn't expect a government entity not to seek these types of behaviors. But there'll be tweaks along the way, which is perfectly understandable. And the good thing, the pleasing thing for us as an organization operating in this space, is that we see that HMRC as a regulator is open to both consultation, conversation, and amending their policies based upon what they're hearing and how the on the ground that the policies are being interpreted. And that is kudos to HMRC. And again, encouraging for us as an organization operating in the space, and great for claimants as well that they've got an entity like the HMRC that is both listening and open to addressing any change where necessary.
Definitely. And obviously, touched on us being an organisation in this space. Obviously, like, we're quite clued into all of these changes and kind of feel that they're overall a positive thing. But essentially, like, even with the advisors, like, we've got a big role now to play in kind of the future of R&D. And I guess kind of like, what would you see Empowered's role being a little bit more as this scheme changes, as these like new updates are implemented?
So from the get-go, the value set that Empowered was set up with was based on doing the right thing, not just for our clients, but also our team, and critically, the right thing by the UK taxpayer. And so when we're thinking about, when we're taking a decision about, how we operate, what does our future hold, we're walking quite a fine line. If you look at sort of the Venn diagram with those three entities across it, I mean, there's certainly room for us to maneuver and create what has been, a story of, great growth and, thousands of organizations that we've supported, and, that we continue to support, and operating within, and growing through a period of change. Where many of our peers have actually sort of hunkered down, and decided to really just focus in on, shrinking the size of the business or standing still. So we've taken on board some of the changes that HMRC is bringing about, and a lot of those actually aligned with what we were doing and the best practice that we had in place already. Which is, again, we think we're already playing. We're already in the position that HMRC wants to kind of drive the industry to. That's maybe a little bit of hubris, but hopefully you'll allow that.
Accept that, Harry. That's okay.
But we're seeing HMRC kind of leading the industry to a position that we also want the industry to get to. And that's precisely what we're anticipating when we're thinking about our what's our the plan for the next 18 months, 36 months, looking forward the next 5 years. Where could the industry be? I think the policy just becomes. I know the question was was double-sided, where it's also sort of where is the industry heading, and also where are we going? When we see the industry and we see the policies from HMRC leading to a position where there is one merged scheme, where there is a different rate of payout for R&D intensive organizations, and potentially even organizations in certain industries. There's lots of talk there's certainly lots of talk from the Labour government, as well as historically there's been a lot of talk from the Conservative government as well about industrial policies. And having an industrial policy that focuses in on specific industries. So there could well be different rates of payout based upon industry. Which again, you take the foundation that's been set up now with a unified merge scheme, which pays out above the line essentially, which is again a lot more both tangible, valuable, and predictable for our clients and for UK business, and it allows them to take it allows greater administration, but it takes this policy that's been set up and allows HMRC to layer over the top of it and fine tune where the UK pound from the taxpayer is best invested to drive the greatest GDP growth. So that's hugely valuable. And when we see the direction of travel, looking for greater auditability, greater robustness in claiming, a lot of those things can only be delivered through a combination of technology and human intelligence, right? So it's that the term, whether you call it sort of co-botting, whether you call it sort of a hybrid working approach, but essentially what it means is the only way we're going to that an advisor can provide HMRC the output that they're looking for is by combining the best that technology can offer and the best that we operate within a world of tax, right? And that is there are a few bright red lines in the world of tax, so there is a lot of interpretation. So you need that human expertise, at least until some sort of general artificial intelligence comes about. But I think we're exactly. But I think we're probably a little while away from that. But we need a combination of the two, and so that again plays into very much what we as an organization are about, which is how can we utilize technology to automate as much of the process as we possibly can, while bringing in the human expertise in a laser focused way where they can provide the most value that they can into the process, and that for us will continue to be how we meet the challenges of the future. So that's we'll continue to operate within that space.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Hari. That was super interesting. And if you would like to stay up to date with any of the upcoming changes or the spring budget announcements, feel free to subscribe to the channel so we can keep you up to date with those changes. And if you have any further questions on the spring budget, anything that's come with that, or the R&D tax credit scheme and innovation in the future, feel free to reach out to the team and we'll be more than happy to help. This podcast has been brought to you by Empowered, a platform and service for R&D tax credit claims.